I kind of feel like anyone who doesn't understand that you can make a cheaper copy of a brand has never actually shopped at Aldi. Hello and welcome, Budri Gamawara from the Gadigal lands in Sydney. It's time for Startup 360 with
Majella Campbell
and Simon Thomsen, editor of StartupDaily.net. Great to have your company. This is episode 18, episode 3 for you?
4, I think.
4. Oh my gosh. Then you're off your P plates now. You're a fully licensed co-host of Startup
How
360.
exciting. You still have me here, so I'm excited to be invited back.
How's your week been?
It's been really good. How's your week been? I feel like we always talk about me. We need to talk about you more. How's your week?
It's good because I had both kids home last night, one from Melbourne Uni and one from ANU, and it kind of, you forget how much they eat as teenagers, and unfortunately my wife's away this week, so I've kind of been batching it, but I've got a house going in and out full of people, which is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
And you know, the other exciting thing, of course, is we are one day away from the shortest day of the year. So from next week, the days will start getting longer, which I think I'm about ready for.
Summer again. I still can't believe. I keep thinking, I'm like, how is it only 19 days into winter? And is it winter? Yeah, it starts in July, right? June,
yes.
Yeah.
We're 3 weeks into winter, but we're a week away from the end of the financial year. Isn't that exciting? Christmas for accountants.
Yay. It's a good time.
Let's first of all acknowledge that Startup 360 is supported by Vanta, helping startups unlock market opportunities through automated compliance. Thanks to Vanta. Now, we have 2 seriously cool chicks on the show today.
I'm so excited.
You're the third cool chick. But,
I'll happily take third place to those 2. They're incredible.
You're on the podium.
Glad to be there.
Who are our guests? Would you like to share?
We have, for our 10X guest today, I'm going to do it backwards. We've got Sam Garvin, who is the founder and CEO of Hello Canopy. And for our lead guest, we've got Bree Kirkham from F5 Ventures,
who has an incredible CV. And we did the most wonderful session last year at South by Southwest talking about parenting as a founder. It was a really moving deep dive into juggling life and other responsibilities.
It's a big task. It's a huge one.
Now, I do want to talk about a couple of big issues that have been in the news this week. Of course, the amazing one was a Canva. Cliff's been out shopping again. I imagine the Canva. Do you reckon it's a black Amex? Did he sort of?
Yeah, Canva credit card just getting tapped.
Yeah.
I want access to that.
This week it was Magic Brief. Do you know that's the 3rd startup they've bought? From a Sydney startup they've bought in 7 years, and the 9th acquisition overall. I love it.
I think it's so awesome. I always look through acquisitions, like in the early days. I think not the chief product officer, it was someone else who was like, they've just been acquiring and they've kept the teams in there from day one. It's just so awesome to see them continuing to grow and absorbing more and more. It's great.
There was I think some commentary from Capital Brief where Rain Ong from Archangel was sort of saying, look, I'm happy with this, even though it's an early exit, 1 or 2 years after we put money in, I now have shares in Canva. So a few of them seem to be quite pleased with that. And well done to the team from Magic Brief. It's amazing to go in 3 years, I think it was.
It's a huge amount of growth. And it's just, I think it's such a great application of AI. I think anytime you have a big explosion of tech, you get all these businesses or startups that are focused just on AI for AI's sake. But I think I love about Magic Brief is it just genuinely solves such an important problem and delivers such a great return on investment. And having those creators, it's such a big win for creatives and marketers. And it's just, I'm really excited to see where they take it with Canva as well.
When the company first emerged, I did describe it as the love child of Canva and Pinterest. I didn't realise that, mum and dad would call the company back home so soon.
Well,
the prodigal child is now going to be part of Canva. So well done to them. I want to give a huge shout out to another amazing woman who announced this week that after 6 years, she's stepping down as CEO of Cicada Innovations. Sally Ann Williams, she's been a guest on the show and a guest contributor to Startup Daily over the years. I think her energy to the sector as a whole, as a deep tech advocate, an evangelist, just for the work she's done for the federal government on the diversity in STEM review, which she handed in, I think, early 2024, and it wasn't until about 12 months down the track, Ed Husick was at South Start and suddenly surprised everyone, including his own advisors, when he announced that the government was going to adopt all 11 recommendations of that review. I think it's up to all of us now to make sure that the government follows through, because, of course, Tim
Absolutely.
Ayres is the minister now. Husick has gone from it, but it was a great report, and she's such a big thinker. Sally Ann, I just want to say thank you for all you've done. I mean, there were so many incredible things. There's the Health Innovation Hub out at Westmead. There's a biotech incubator down in Melbourne now, Juma. Of course, you revived Tech23, which is coming up in a month or two, so that'll be pretty exciting again. Just really puts the Carter Innovations, which turns 25 this year.
Wow.
It is the OG of these incubators. Turning 25 this year, and it really is more important than ever what they're doing down at Everleigh. So I think she used to give me book recommendations at Christmas time. Finally, she can probably read some of those books. She'll have time. So thank you for that. Speaking of saying ta-ta, Kiki in New York. This is a company that tends to make headlines for reasons other than, wow, look what they've done now. Well, maybe it is, wow, look what they've done now, but not in a good way. This week, the founder, Toby Thomas Smith, announced that they were shutting down in New York for the second time. And I have to say he's an eternal optimist and, painted a picture of how well everything was going, but the regulatory issues were a problem. Now, I flagged the regulatory problems when they shut down the first time 12 months ago after operating for just 3 months. And I know that Tegan Jones in Smart Company has been having a chat with the authorities in New York, who are sort of pretty clear about the rules.
Yes,
and
that's the thing about laws, is they tend to be pretty clear from day one.
And, there are companies like Uber, and I do want to ask Bree about this a little bit later on, which kind of, you move fast, you break things, and you break the laws, and then you say sorry later and pay a fine, if they come after you. I don't think that these guys were kind of big enough, even though they had 9.5 million or so, 7 mil from Blackbird in a seed around a couple of years ago to take off to New York and do this. I don't think they were big enough, given that New York authorities are quite happy to take on Donald Trump and have no fear on that front. 4 guys from New Zealand are probably small change for them, and I think there's been a bit of a challenge on that front.
Yeah, I think it's always a tricky thing when founders try to adopt. Obviously you want to be disruptive and you want to take those things on, but there's always that tricky balance. Just because one company's done it, it's kind of more the exception than the rule. And I think founders can tend to go, if you're too premature and try to change too much too quickly, you end up with a company that's not moving in the direction that you probably want it to.
Well, there are always companies that are sort of outside the regulatory framework, and even if you look at the slow arc we've gone through on BNPL, and I'm sure everyone who has an Afterpay account got an email where just the other day they were saying, look, we're regulated and we couldn't be happier, but at the time it was all about sort of finding that narrow gap you could sort of get through that skirted around the law until you got big enough and governments turn around and say, okay, we have to do something about this issue.
Yeah, it's worth.
But I think the rules were there already, and it does make me wonder, the first closure 12 months ago, after just 3 months, perhaps that was what was going on and we didn't quite get the full story at that point in time. That was when they wanted to launch, 4 boys were going to launch Girls Who NYC, a young women's club in New York, and you can imagine there was a few women who were a little bit surprised by that one.
I can see why.
Why? What is it you can see? What am I missing here, Magella?
No further comment.
Yeah, all right. Well,
it's disappointing, I think, overall, but I think maybe I won't actually say anything, but
we'll continue to watch this one as it unfolds, and I think at this point in time, because I think one of the numbers was they were predicting that they were going to make something like $2.5 million a month in revenue, and I think over the 10 months or so it's turned out to be $76,000. So I'd be interested to know if Blackbird still has its investment at $7 million on its books at this point in time, because I think it might need a few noughts shaved off.
yes, I would say that's probably the case from my humble opinion.
Well,
but it's not.
shall we get an investor in and have a chat about investing in women? Because
I think so. It's great to see when money is going to people with really solid businesses and, changing that world and taking on the big things in life. I think that's really great. I'm really excited to hear about it.
And one life lesson I have is investing in women is always worthwhile.
Oh, the numbers are there, and I think they speak for themselves.
Well, you're watching Startup 360. We'll be right back to have a chat with Bree Kirkham from F5 Collective. Welcome back to Startup 360 with Simon Magella and our fabulous first guest, Bree Kirkham from F5 Collective. Great to have you in.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Magella. Great to be here.
We're going to dive into your story in a minute, but first of all, F5 Collective. Now, I want to know about the name. Is Tracy an old fan of Enid Blyton and the famous Five, or what's it all about?
We always get asked this question, and there are different renditions, but I will give you the one that I know best, and that is, so F5 Collective is a fund turned fintech, and we'll get to that, I hope, that derived out of the States from a beautiful family over there, the Kimballs, as well as the team here in Australia, and it's headed up, as you mentioned, by Tracy Warren, our CEO down in Melbourne. And when they were thinking about F5 and creating this fund to support women in business, they thought about a tornado and about really, really stirring, I don't know if I should swear or not, but stirring shit up. And the F5 factor tornado is the biggest tornado that you can experience, and it really, really stirs shit up. And so that was the premise of the name, that this is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and hence the F5.
I like that.
I'm obsessed with that. That's incredible.
Right. And so now we have this play on F5. We do lots of, we do 5 Fs and different versions of it. So there are we can tone that down and have a different rationale for the name. But I do think that the Factor 5 tornado is pretty cool.
Well, I can say you move fast like the F1, but 5 times better.
Right. Exactly. I like that.
Very versatile name.
You have had an amazing career working with some of the biggest names in tech. Let's talk ClassPass, Airbnb, Uber. What made you decide to go from that build side to the invest side?
Truthfully, it was something I always wanted to do. So, Simon, to your point, I started at ClassPass. I was a very early hire there. I think I was our first Australian hire, and I then ultimately led our expansion into new markets. And I felt the impact that funding had on scaling a business. And that, to me, was the most exciting inflection point for a startup, for a business. And I wanted to be on that side. So I then did stints at Uber and Airbnb, the other way around. And again, just was really interested in the funding side, what capital did to accelerate growth, and then ultimately what these businesses could be worth on the other side of an IPO. And so for me, getting into venture was ultimately where I wanted to be, and I knew that fairly early on and made the jump into traditional venture. But then, and I hope we get to this, was very disenfranchised with the lack of funding going to women and the types of businesses that were being funded that women were building. And so ultimately that led me to F5, and never been happier.
Did it bring also a sense of empathy, knowing what it's like on the other side, where you're
Absolutely.
praying, hoping for money, and that experience of trying to coax it out of the venture side? Absolutely.
I think that investors can come from all walks, and we've seen that. We see that when we look at the industry now. I do think having had deep operational experience and feeling the impact of funding sets you up to be a unique kind of investor. And I do think, Simon, to your point, it's one that is more empathetic, more understanding of where the cash might be spent, more understanding of just the tensions that exist at different points in scaling a business. And so, yeah, I do think that gave me an edge. I like to think it did, at least.
That's great. And working with all these female-founded businesses, I would love to know, what energizes you the most about working on such incredible founders?
Great question. And I have to say my energy is at its peak right now. So we spent the better half of 12, 18 months really researching why women weren't receiving the funding that we believe they should. And there's a lot of case studies out there that it's all about the sort of the VCs. They're all male and they therefore don't understand women businesses and how to deploy capital there. I think there's some truth there, but I don't think it's the only reason. There's other stories around, the funnel isn't big enough. There's not enough women building businesses. There's some truth there, but we'll get to that. And so we spent a lot of time really going into the data around why women aren't receiving funding and wrote a theory of change. And the three core reasons were lack of confidence that women typically have. They're less confident to ask for money. A networking problem in that they just don't have the networks that our male counterparts tend to, and also the type of funding that exists, not being the right funding for the businesses that women build. So back to your question, what energizes me is that we are now building an ecosystem that will actually serve women in business. 50% of women are actually building more product consumer type businesses. Only 3% of women build what are typical venture-backed businesses. And so the products that we are taking to market will support that woman, that consumer builder, someone who's got a great product, someone who is conscious of brand, someone who's thinking about wait lists, someone who is, actively marketing what is, an incredible consumer product out to the market. And that is the sweet spot that we are going after.
I want to pick up on that because you and Tracy wrote a great piece for Startup Daily last week. And I have to say, and I'm very excited about this, that we've subsequently talked and we're going to have our own little project on startupdaily.net telling these stories and highlighting the amazing people involved and, of course, the F5 way of doing things. But you talked about 3 unicorns founded by women. One, of course, is an Australian one, Shelley Sullivan's MCO Beauty, which she sold only a month or two ago at $1 billion valuation within 5 years. Dennis Bastos did back her a couple of years ago, but he loved it so much, he said, I'll take the lot. That's extraordinary. The revenues, I think, are 300 million plus per year. And I know plenty of startups that are still hoping to make their first million 5 years down the track. But Road, which is Hailey Bieber, 28. Now everyone can go, yeah, of course, celebrity, easy. But no, you've still got to do it, because I've seen plenty of celebrity, hello, Donald Trump and steaks, ideas go down the tubes pretty quickly. And then Touchland, the hand sanitizer one, which I think surprised me as well, because, again, it sold last month for $1.36 billion Australian. Is it a case that the women are kind of just finding these niches that, I made the joke at the time that, half the population doesn't know who Shelley Sullivan is, but a lot of people are completely tuned in, and the purchasing power suggests that they know exactly what's going on. Yeah. That's why they get overlooked.
There's so much to unpack there, and
you can take that as a statement more than a question.
I'm frantically nodding my head because there's so much to unpack. So first of all, why do these women get overlooked? I think because, back to my previous point, the funding that has existed for women in business who are building these types of businesses hasn't been there. They walk up to a VC and say, I'm building a beauty brand that is going to disrupt the beauty market because we're going to dupe what are sort of already existing products. Can you give me funding? The answer would be absolutely no. Does it have hockey stick growth? Is it SaaS? Is it tech? No, it's all of the things that actually go against what venture is all about. And likewise, if Shelley had have rocked up to a bank and said, this is my idea, they would have had to look against all of their regulations to see, is this even possible? Can we even go down this path? I think really there hasn't been an avenue of funding to support these women in a way that makes sense. And so what you see is these women have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to build businesses from the ground up. They have been everything from from product and R&D through to marketing, through to advertising, through to sales, through to go-to-market, through to accounting. They've managed it all. And I meet with these women day in, day out that say to me, funding has never been a possibility for us, so we just work hard and we think about revenue from day one and we think about profitability from day one, and their mindset is about building a successful business from the outset. Now then you think, okay, what could some capital actually do to help scale these women faster, more effectively into international markets sooner? And that's what really gets F5 so excited, that women are almost setting themselves up for success without funding. Imagine what some funding could do to really catapult that.
And I kind of feel like anyone who doesn't understand that you can make a cheaper copy of a brand has never actually shopped at Aldi.
Correct.
Or even gone into the home brand section of the other supermarket duopoly. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, Aldi has carved out a massive niche of the Australian market
Absolutely.
by doing exactly that. And of course, what Shelley's done is a similar business model.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm certainly an Audi fan, especially with little kids. But
Do you go straight to the bargain bins
straight
in
to
the
that
middle?
section, and they choose some sort of toy that's actually really reasonably priced. So I'm all for it.
Not
but
the
absolutely.
tumble dryer, because I saw one in there yesterday.
Mind you, I do need a new dryer, so maybe I'll go.
Aldi.
Women also, they see problems in front of them and they interrogate. If we think about Emily Weiss of Glossier, she started with a blog where she asked her customer what they were looking for. She didn't take a product to market on the assumption that that's what was needed. She did this level of research where she spoke to her customer to then answer their problem for them. And I think that we as women are just more in tune with that sort of line of questioning and that discovery process, or we see things and we think this could be done better. I want to do it better. You know, hand sanitizer is such a simple one. Hand sanitizer existed, but it was the fact of putting it into a box that was, or a container that was pleasant to look at, that smelt nice. Like, these things are just about taking something that is, that by and large exists in some form, but actually making it attractive, putting a brand around it that makes you really excited.
Well, the hilarious thing is that when Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive do that to a telephone or something like
Right.
that, everyone loses their minds and
Right.
goes, this is genius.
Absolutely. We all jump at it. Innovation, right? It's just innovation.
So was that 3% rule, like design something 3%
Yeah,
better?
exactly.
Yeah.
3 little changes.
Absolutely. So you back businesses solving real world and obviously overlooked problems. We've talked period-proof underwear, fertility tech, menopause support. What makes you double down on a business that others would politely pass on?
I think it's all the things that we've discussed. I feel that Tracy and myself are both very bullish on brand, on the brand that exists around a product. So product is one thing, of course, you need to have a good product, it goes without saying. But what is this brand heat that a founder has created? Again, think of, if we keep local, Shopo and Jane Liu. So she's at 100 mil revenue. She hasn't done anything. Yes, her products are great, but it's this brand that she's created around herself, around Shopo, that really is attractive. I think the Meshki founders are the same. These two incredible women that have disrupted fashion here in Australia. They are multimillionaires. They've done it quietly, but they have created this brand that women want to be a part of. It's almost like this cult brand that exists. And you mentioned Hayley and Rode, and there's a lot behind her business that made that, that we believe made that successful. You know, limited SKUs, very protective around where her brand was featured. You know, a clear playbook behind that a man called Nick ran, and he did something similar with Honest Company for Jessica Alba. So there are very deliberate tactics going on behind the scenes, but by and large there is this brand that women particularly want to feel part of. And so at F5 we're really doubling down on that. And that's something that a lot of investors would never even consider.
Absolutely. I love that so much.
I've often had this view that one of the things investment committees need is a psychologist of some sort, a consumer behaviour expert, because I kind of feel like half the time they're backing an idea that everyone talks about product market fit. Half the time with these, it's already there. It's just understanding that relationship. Do women's quite simply think about building differently to men? Is it a gender-related thing? Guys will just come up with, you know, look, yeah, okay, square peg over there, round hole. I'm going to hit it hard enough until it gets through.
I think there's an emotional play that happens more for women. I think there is this emotional connection that they typically have to their business that then enables them to build a story. And I believe that it's that story that often captures the consumer. So I kind of have forgotten your question, and I don't want to speak for our male friends, our male allies and male founders, but I do think that one thing that women do, aside from, you know, ruthlessly doing everything else, is really thinking about the story that comes back, that sort of drives the brand forward, and how to engage the consumer in that sense. And I do think naturally we do that more than men.
The word empathy came to mind for me as well, as like
Yeah.
understanding why that connects, and like
Yeah.
I feel like that's something.
Absolutely.
I would love to hear your take on like trends for the future. I know we've got this huge wealth generation or transfer that's going to
Yeah.
happen. I think it's $124 trillion across the
Yeah.
globe, and one of the biggest, consumers of that is going to be women. I think it's, what is it, 70% or something?
80%.
80%,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Keen to hear your understanding about, how that's going to fit in, obviously for the startups, maybe in the care economy, or what kind of industries and trends do you think are going to come from this?
Absolutely. I think at a high level that obviously plays into our hand very nicely, and we've been strategic about that 80% of decisions around what is bought for the home are made by women, that women will largely be the recipients of a lot of this transfer of wealth. And so that's really exciting to us, both in terms of how big we can make F5. And, we've already had people and funds reach out to us saying we want to invest in whatever you're, in the fund that you're deploying. Yeah, exactly. In terms of trends, we are really excited about beauty and skincare still. I think that these are just going to continue. There's virality that exists in those industries. There's repeat purchasing that exists in those industries. They're really exciting to us. This idea of personalized wellness, so really understand not just wellness and supplements in general, but this personalized wellness theme. So having bloods taken, personalised testing done, and really deeply understanding how to improve your health proactively, we're bullish on. And then also the home. I think that COVID did many things, but one thing it really did was make people either love or hate their home, but really catapult this concept of like this home culture and products that exist in your home. And so we're excited about everything sort of in the home, and that includes food and bev as well. And I met with a content creator yesterday. She's a friend of mine. She has 2 million followers. She only built her business after COVID, and just the impact that COVID had, she believes, on just catapulting what is a food and bev business is, insane.
I want to talk a little bit about family, because I remember, I think it was last year, we were at S2S Summit, and we had a chance to chat, but of course you had to go and do pickup at 3 p.m. That's one of the things that always strikes me, the emotional labour side of being a founder as well, and it's something we explored last year at South by Southwest. Yeah. And, Dom Price was on there too, and he talked about the trade-offs and the decisions you have to make. Talk a little bit about that and how you manage that with women. But I also want to get a message to the blokes to understand that you can't just outsource because, you're building this amazing $1 billion company. We talked about it with Steve Totoko, I think in our very first show.
Yeah.
He learnt that lesson the hard way with his family, and he's kind of worked on rebuilding from there. But for women, it kind of never leaves. I watch, my own wife with her very busy job and a whole bunch of other things, and the effort she still puts into our kids succeeding is something that blows me away.
Yeah. I have so much to say on this topic, as you know, and Simon, you created
we can just do a whole show.
We can just keep going.
We'll get Sam back next week.
So first up on the panel, that was one of the most moving panels I'd been on. We had people in the audience crying, coming up to us afterwards. I think we were very honest and open in that panel, and I always try and convey an open message around this. A couple of things at a high level. I think that I get to live out both of my dreams. So I get to be ambitious with my career, and I get to love raising children. And I think, I said this on the panel, you can do both, but there are trade-offs. I can't be everywhere. I can't be two places at once. But I also don't shy away from that. I think that my ambition and my desire to build a career and a successful fund and business and to support more women actually adds more value than it takes away, in the sense that I think that, I hope that my kids look and say, look at what my mum is wanting to do and look at what my mum is pursuing. I think as women, we can try to, we not only do we think that we can't have both, and I challenge that, I think we can, but we often say, oh, I can't let them see that side, or, I have to hide my ambition. And I actually think that's not the case. Our ambition should be celebrated in front of our kids. Now, day to day, it's a struggle. Mm-hmm. It's moving parts, it's heavily administrative, it's routine like there's no, routine like you've never seen. And often I don't get a chance to talk to my husband about anything else other than what the moving parts look like. But everything is a chapter, right? I have 2 young kids. They can't do really anything themselves. And so, I'm mindful that this is the chapter that we're in, but that will change and that will grow. And, we share a lot about what's happening for Lulu and, the different journey that you're on in this chapter now that she's finished school. And I think, you want to celebrate it, you want to enjoy it, but yeah, it's challenging. It's difficult. It does take a village. I'm lucky that I have a supportive partner and family, but, I agree. We need our partners, whether they're male or female, to lean in and to help, because it's just much easier when you're dividing and conquering, right?
Incredible.
Even if it's just I'll put the washing machine on if you can hang it out.
Right.
It's so important.
And sometimes it's, I speak with couples who both have big careers and they just know their lanes. One person cooks dinner every night, one person does the cleaning, and it's monotonous and it's boring, but it works,
Yeah.
It's that work-life harmony.
Yeah,
work-life
exactly.
Balance. I think that's the far more realistic way.
Oh yeah, I haven't used that word balance in a long time.
It doesn't exist.
Because I think when you're constantly ambitious, is there a state of balance, or are you're pushing for the next thing, right?
If balance equals juggle.
Yeah, balance equals juggle.
That's the word.
Yeah, and I'm thankful and I appreciate the moments that I'm in, but I think we're always striving to make things better, and so balance just, it's just, I don't know. It's a funny word, that one.
I always think it's splinters up your ass sitting on the fence.
Right, exactly.
You have the most lively expressions.
I love it.
Really just crystal clear in my mind.
Sorry.
I know, but it's true.
It's great. It's
true.
very emotive. I want to actually, before I realise we're short on time, so wanted to carve out before we go. When I sort of look out at the female founder ecosystem, or the support systems behind supporting women in business, a lot of it really centres around, we saw this in the Innovation Blueprint, but it all comes back down to this idea of getting more women to participate, which I think is just such a limited approach to the wider macro vision on this. I want to know from you, what do we need to do to help women become successful in the industry as opposed to just getting them in the door?
It's a great question. And I mentioned the theory of change, which F5 wrote, and I think that's a really good sounding board for us. It has been in terms of designing this ecosystem. Excuse my nasally voice as well. So you're spot on. You're spot on in the sense that capital can only do so much. Funding only does so much. And we are now going to market with what is a capital meets commerce concept, which is, yes, you get the funding, but actually what else do you need? And that is paying customers and revenue and the right support. And that support is access to quality legal support. It's access to the right accountant. It's access to tech teams when you need them. It's tangible quality support that you can leverage to help to build and scale your business. It's not, with ChatGPT and in this world of AI, we can actually create so much and we can streamline so many processes, we can be more efficient, but we still need sound advice across key pillars. And so in us bringing this capital meets commerce model to market, we truly believe that women can get access to the support that they actually need and that will move the dial for them.
Incredible. Love that so much. Tangible things. No more theory.
No more theory.
Let's get our hands dirty.
No more theory. Get your hands dirty and get people who are experts in their field to support you when you need it. The amount of women that we have met down the line who have really, really shitty terms from VCs, who have shitty agreements with co-founders that are silent and need these things to be unwound. And you think if only you were set up for success, from the outset with the right legal advice, you'd be... you just wouldn't have to deal with this shit right now.
Okay, it's take your mum to school day, and you're going to talk to all of those young girls who, let's say at this point in time, they're 10, 12 years old, starting to think about high school. What is Bree Kirkham's message going to be to these young women about shaping the future?
Gosh, it's a big question.
Yep.
You don't want to get that one wrong, do you?
No pressure.
Shaping, yeah. I want a couple of things, if I can. Mm-hmm. First of all, I would say listen to your gut. I think a lot of girls and a lot of women question themselves all day, every day, and question their path and question their role in society and question what they should do based on the mark they got or their parents' expectations or, just what society is throwing at them. And I think my biggest thing is trust your gut, because I do think if you follow your passion and you follow what you're good at, then the success will naturally flow your way. I genuinely think that. The second thing I would say is that there's no wrong turn. Again, back to this pressure, I think there is this tendency for women especially to think that everything has to make sense. I've got to stay in that job for 3 years because that's what I should do. I have to choose the next right career move. I don't agree with that. I think that you can take threads from different careers and different roles that you've had in different moments in your life to create something really special. And so I encourage girls and women to not put that pressure on themselves that they have to get every step right, and to know that there isn't a wrong turn and you can always pivot and move into something else and actually take value from what you learned, in a previous step. So that'd be my 2 things.
Bree, thank you for joining us from F5 Collective. Look forward to our collaboration on startupdaily.net, and thanks for joining us on Startup 360.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. And Simon, thank you for being such a champion of ours. We appreciate it so much.
It's too easy, really. You do all the hard work. I just take some of the glory.
So you should.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Sam Garvin in just a moment.
Hello and welcome back to Startup 360. We are joined by the incredible Sam Garvin,
Yay!
founder of Hello Canopy and Grapevine as well. Yes?
Yes, one of the founding members of Grapevine. Yep.
Incredible. So for people who don't know your story, you've spent years in people and culture, roles across high-growth startups, obviously involved in Grapevine and now Hello Canopy. I would love to know what drew you into the HR space and how that journey led you to start Hello Canopy.
So it's a bit of a non-linear one. I'm actually a scientist by education. So I have a master's degree in environmental science. I actually studied wallabies in the Ku-ring-gai National Park.
Cool.
Yes. That's a different podcast, I think. But I was doing my Master's of Environmental Science by day and moonlighting as a tech recruiter at Zip, like Zip Money, Zip Co, by night. And so I was sort of like living these dual lives. I then finished my master's degree. COVID had hit. And I was just about to do my PhD and study koalas. But then all of the money for environmental sciences understandably got funneled into health sciences. And so I sort of had to reevaluate my career. And instead I ended up doing social impact at Zip in the people and culture team. So I ended up sort of staying, but taking my wallaby knowledge and applying it to social impact at Zip. And the rest was sort of history. I stayed in the people and culture team. I did learning and development. I then moved into a head of people and culture role at Kind, a VC-backed startup. And then sort of through that experience in people and culture, I saw, I suppose, a real gap for like how we can help more employees and people in organizations en masse instead of like that one-to-one. And, I myself had experienced sexual harassment in the workplace, and which, led me to meet all the wonderful women at Grapevine. But then we just started seeing more stories and just seeing the actual size of workplace misconduct and what goes on. And I was sort of between two worlds. I was like advocating for people to speak up who have, experienced like quite horrible things in the workplace. But then I was on the other side in HR being like, okay, well, me and my Google sheet will fix it for you. like don't have the right tools, right? And so that's sort of when there was this moment of like, oh, well, why don't I just like build the right tool that helps people speak up in a way that feels really safe, and you can be anonymous if you want, but then also gives HR folks an actual great tool to use, because like we get snuffed a lot. We get like the dregs of what everyone else in businesses get product wise. Like we don't get the sexiest products that like work the best and have the fanciest things. And so why can't we also have that and build something people want to use? And so that was sort of my journey to, being like, all right, let's just do this thing. Let's build the thing that I needed and that I want.
That's awesome.
It is. So what gives you the shits the most in HR?
I mean, not having the right
Ooh,
tools.
okay.
Genuinely, like we're working from spreadsheets, and product designers are, they have like Figma and Miro and Dovetail and these amazing tools that are doing fancy things. And in HR, it's like, but don't forget to use your spreadsheet to manage all of our people across the entire organization, who is the heartbeat of the company. Like, help us help you.
Yep.
Yes.
Little message. We might have to clip that one up and just sort of put it out there.
Yes, please.
So you said Hello Canopy is built for safety, not just from the legal perspective, of course, but from that emotional sense as well. How do you design for something as invisible as trust?
It's a really hard one to do. And I think maybe two-part answer is that it's going to be impossible to design for that outright. That's something that we have to earn. And we have to earn it through how we've built security and how we've positioned the company and the benefits that we try to give to employees when they do use our platform. So the benefits of giving them that control back. So I think the one way that we've really thought about trust is when someone does go, in this, without a Hello Canopy platform, where someone would go to make a report, they'd have to show this high degree of bravery because they'd walk up to HR, or they'd send an email to their HR business partner. They would do all these things that are really identified and really sort of put them out there saying, hey, this happened to me. Or if they can be anonymous, it's, like I said, a Google Sheet, and there's no way of having a conversation after that. And so I think the one thing we really thought about in building trust is how do we give some control back where typically no control has been given before. So it's choosing to be identified or anonymous, choosing what you want to share, choosing what information goes in there, what doesn't go in there, choosing later on if you want to be identified, but you absolutely don't have to, and then giving employees the ability to message in the platform with HR, even if they are anonymous. So getting the choice to still have a conversation, even if their name's not against it. So we just want the employee to have as much of that control back that was probably taken away from them in the situation that they've experienced. So that's sort of the core part of trust that we hope people will experience when they use the platform, but the rest of it is earned in the other features that we build and how we talk about what we're doing.
Tell me, what's the mistake founders make early on in setting up culture for their startup?
That you can't have culture and scale fast at the same time. I think there's this whole premise of like, move fast and break things. And look, that's fine.
Often it means breaking the people.
Yeah, but sometimes it means breaking culture and breaking people. And I think it's not a one or the other. You can have both of those things, but they have to be done with intent, right? Founders are out there building amazing products and trying to change the world and do all these really, really cool things, but just like apply those same principles and same philosophies and like pick them up and put them in your business for your people. Like, how are you changing the world for your employees? How are you building the best place for your employees to work? Like, how are you doing all of those things externally that you're talking about? How do you bring them in internally and build that for your people? Because like better people means better products. More empowered employees means better products and more revenue. And so I think just applying those product and growth principles, but just like do it for your company, do it for your people as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. What is a trend in workplace culture or maybe even startup culture that just makes you roll your eyes?
Move fast and break things? No, I think it's that AI can do everything. That's starting to like irk me just a little bit, because I think the second we take the human part out of the things that we're building for humans, are we missing a trick here? I think AI is an awesome enabler. Like, I use AI every single day in building Hello Canopy, right? But what's the trick I'm missing, right? Like, there might be an oversight that I don't see because I'm working with AI and not a human who is like a specialist in this little bit of knowledge that maybe I don't even know to ask the right questions. So don't supplement a human for AI. I think it's more about empowering and, I suppose, equipping like really, really smart people with the right AI tools that just make them go even faster.
I'm going to follow up on that because I've seen the stories at how quickly AI can take a turn for the worst, and given it's built on human behaviour, very quickly it can end up being racist and sexist and all the other ists. So how do you protect from in an AI context from sort of everything going off the rails really quickly if AI is going to be a solution?
I think for us personally, Hello Canopy, it's what are we giving AI access to in our business? Mm-hmm. Are we just opening it up, opening the floodgates and being like, use AI for everything, go ham on everything that we've got here? I would say in principle, that is probably a way to get sued, which has happened. Workday was an HRIS platform. Workday was sued for discrimination because AI was used in their hiring processes. So it's already happening. And so it's like, okay, well, what's the data that you're giving AI access to? And what are you asking it to do with that data? Is it make decisions about the fundamental workplace rights that someone might have? Is it make decisions about legal, policy, financial parts of your business that expose you to risk? Like, I think it's all about what are you using AI to do? What's the data that you're giving it access to? And then if you're actually using companies, so not just like a chat GPT, but say you're using a particular company that uses AI to do a specific thing, like an agent, what's their data security privacies? Like, are they training their model on the data that you're giving them? Like, look really closely at how those organizations are actually leveraging AI and say, like, do we want to be giving our employees data to this company that stores it somewhere else and trains a large language model with it? Like, I think it's just question. Don't just blindly use and assume it's going to do the right things, because, like, it may not, and it probably won't if you're not looking close enough.
My question?
It's you. Yeah, I wasn't doing that as an AIB. I did the whole question.
So, I'm pretending to be a startup founder right now, and I've got a couple of employees. What's the cultural red flag that I'm looking for to make sure that I'm sustaining a healthy environment for my employees to work in?
Ooh, people not feeling safe to voice their opinion. If you're going to bring in your first 3 employees, they're going to be people who are like wicked smart at what they do, right? Otherwise, what's the point of bringing them in? You might as well still be a team of one, right? Let those people have their opinions that they are specialists in. If you start hearing less and less feedback, and you start hearing less concerns, less positive, like silence. Maybe that's the answer to that. The red flag is silence. When people stop speaking up, telling you good things, telling you bad things, like, that's probably a sign of a bigger problem.
That's great.
Yes, there's the old statement about silence means consent. It's actually probably the opposite is going on at the time.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think, and as well, I think people mistake, silence for, oh, well, nothing bad is happening. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, no. They're probably silent in the organization, but, like, they're coming your way. They're coming to Startup Daily, and then they're having a conversation about it, right? Like,
goes into the Proton Mail account, and the next thing you know. Office romances, cute or catastrophic, or all of the above?
Oh. Look, I mean,
I'm not suggesting you should put 2 billionaire founders together, marry, have a kid, build a $49 billion company. There are some other variations on that story.
Disclaimer, I've had an office romance
in
the past. But I think what it comes down to is the power dynamics. So is it a manager and employee situation? Is it a VP and an intern situation? Mm-hmm. Like, what's the power dynamics? And, question those. Question, can both people say, I want out of this, and it still be a normal working relationship where someone's career is not impacted? So I think looking at the power dynamics is a really important part. But at the end of the day, I think most people meet their significant other at work, right? Like, we're never going to be able to stop it. And that's a very HR thing to, no office romances. They're going to happen.
Bonk ban.
They're going to happen. But it's like, how do we just sort of check and ask the right questions and be like, hey, is this as an executive in the company, like we need to have a conversation about like what's actually appropriate and what's not appropriate.
So the follow-up there is it a private matter or should it be disclosed? Does someone up the line need to know that, hey, by the way, we're going home in the same Uber?
I think when you have executives involved and people who have the power to make significant decisions in the business about somebody else's career, then there needs to be a conversation. It needs to be disclosed. I think it's a gray area. I don't think you can set black and white rules around it, but I think one of the rules you can set is if you're an executive in an organization and you're entering into a relationship with someone who's junior in the company, who doesn't hold the same amount of control, the same amount of power as you, then I think there needs to be a conversation about that.
What is Hello Canopy's North Star and what impact do you want to leave behind?
So I think our North Star, right now we're making workplaces safer. We'd like to make workplaces better. And I think to do that, there's, the centerpiece of that is conversation. It's what are the conversations that we're currently not having? And it's the hard ones right now, right? But it's how is conversation central to building better businesses? Conversations between employees who have conflicting views, conversations between a manager and, their team, conversations between managers, between executives. I think the inability to have productive, respectful disagreements and conversations is a blocker. And can be where, toxic behaviors start. And so I think the North Star for us, we're still sort of figuring out. We're getting some really interesting signals already really early on, but I think it's making workplaces better and making sure people are having conversations that otherwise wouldn't have been had.
I've saved the toughest, hardest question for last.
Oh, the office relationships one, wasn't it?
No,
Here we go.
No, put you under pressure. So what's your favourite marsupial and or macropod?
I think the wallabies will come for me if I don't say.
But which one?
Oh, look, the rock wallabies. Have you seen a rock
Yeah.
wallaby? Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta
I'm
say.
a huge Paddy Melon fan, personally.
Ooh, okay, all right. Well,
Great choice.
Great discernment. But no, I gotta say rock wallaby. Like, they're adorable.
There's a pretty-faced rock wallaby as well. It's actually literally called a pretty-faced one.
Really?
Yeah, northern New South Wales, you see them.
Oh, okay. I'm onto it.
We're going to have some macropod time.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a birder
Okay.
myself. Like, I've got a great bird app recommendation. If maybe we can take this one offline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna go rock
to
wallaby.
get Camille from Xylo Systems in and sort of compare notes on all of this.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I think the rock wallaby and the superb fairy wren.
Oh,
I'm sneaking a bird in. I'm sneaking a bird in. Sorry.
That's okay. Well done. I think she's passed with flying colours. What do you reckon?
10 out of 10.
With
All right.
superb wren flying colors.
Wonderful.
Right. Thank you.
Great to have you on the show, Sam. Thanks for joining us. And all the best with Hello Canopy.
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
What's the plan for the weekend?
Will you
again.
tell me if I say work?
Work.
Boo. I have about what's on your weekend?
It's my dad's birthday, so I'm having family together for lunch. So happy birthday to Malcolm, and looking forward to that. And I'll have the tribe around, so it'll be great fun. And the Swannies are playing Port Adelaide, so some people in the Startup Daily team will be very happy come Monday morning, and some of us will be very upset, which is part of the joy of life.
I guess we'll have to stay tuned to find out next week.
Yeah, if I'm still crying, you'll know why. But that is all we have time for on the show. Thank you to Matt Jackson. Matt, I don't even know what football team you support. Are you a Swans fan?
If you're talking AFL, I'm a Swans fan, but I'm actually a Cronulla fan.
Cronulla fan. Oh, okay, so go the Sharkies this weekend. Of course, he produces, edits this wonderful show. Thank you so much. Thanks also to Ella Walsh, to James Vass and Vanda for their support. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and to read startupdaily.net for all the latest ANZ tech news. And most importantly, don't forget to enter the Startup Daily Awards. Go to startupdaily.net for all the details. I am hoping Hello Canopy is going to be in there. This is your job. You have to fill out this form. You've got until the end of the month. I think 3rd of July, 4th of July is the closing date. Get your entry in, Sam, okay?
I'm on it.
All right, good. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Bye.